Hi. Welcome to MoneyKetchup channel. The alarm screamed at 5:45 a.m., a sound that had long since ceased to be an alert and had become a daily indictment. Leo stared at the water-stained ceiling of his studio apartment, the familiar cocktail of dread and resignation already sour in his mouth. For 7 years, this had been his ritual. Wake, caffeinate, commute, code, commute, collapse, repeat. His life was a spreadsheet of obligations. His paycheck a fleeting visitor that arrived with fanfare on the 1st and 15th, only to be immediately evicted by rent, student loans, credit card payments, and the grim arithmetic of groceries. The principle, don't work for money, make money work for you, was something he'd seen on glossy Instagram ads featuring tanned entrepreneurs on yachts. To Leo, it was a cruel taunt, a luxury belief for those already on the other side of the financial chasm. He worked for money, desperately. Money was a tyrannical boss, and he was its weary, indentured servant. His breaking point arrived not with a bang, but with a whimper, a notification from his bank app, account balance, $12.37. Overdraft protection activated. It was the 22nd. Payday was a week away. The muffled panic that lived in his chest tightened into a vice. He'd been here before, but the shame never aged. That evening, instead of mindlessly scrolling, he walked. He wandered into a part of the city he usually sped through on the bus, a neighborhood of quiet, tree-lined streets and well-kept brownstones. In a small, forgotten park tucked between two grand buildings, he saw an old man tending to a rose bed with a focus so absolute it seemed to bend the evening light around him. The man wasn't just gardening. He was in a silent conversation with the soil. Leo sat on a bench, watching. The man, sensing his presence, finally looked up and nodded. His name was Elias, he said. His hands were etched with dirt and time. Rough day. Elias's voice was like gravel, but kind. Leo, too exhausted for pretense, found the whole story spilling out. The dead-end job, the predatory debt, the feeling of running on a hamster wheel greased with his own anxiety. Elias listened, not with pity, but with the quiet attention of someone studying a complex root system. When Leo finished, the old man wiped his hands on his trousers and gestured to the rose bed. "See this?" he said. "Most people see flowers. I see employees. Silent, tireless employees." Leo frowned, thinking the man was perhaps a little senile. Elias continued. "I put in work up front, of course. Preparing the soil, choosing the right breeds, planting, watering, protecting them from pests. It's hard work. For a time, it seems like I'm doing all the labor for nothing. But then, he pointed to a lush, crimson bloom. They establish themselves. Their roots dig deep. And then, every season, they go to work for me. They create beauty, which feeds my soul. They propagate, so I can split them and fill new beds. They are my assets. My job shifts from labor to manager. I prune, I guide, I harvest. The roses do the fundamental work of growing." He turned his keen eyes on Leo. "You, son, are watering rocks and wondering why you're always thirsty. You trade your hours for dollars, spend every dollar, and have nothing left to plant. You are a human expense, running to service your liabilities. You need to build assets." The word hung in the air. It wasn't new, but coming from Elias, in this context, it felt like a key turning in a rusty lock. "What's an asset?" Leo asked, feeling foolish. "Anything that puts money in your pocket while you sleep," Elias said. "A liability takes money out. Your car? Liability. Your apartment? Liability. You're paying for someone else's asset. That fancy phone on a payment plan? Liability. You are surrounded by cleverly marketed liabilities, and you work to feed them. You are cultivating a garden of weeds." Over the next weeks, Leo returned to the park. Elias became his unlikely mentor. He gave no stock tips, no get-rich-quick schemes. He gave a framework. Lesson 1, the soil audit. Elias made Leo track every single dollar for a month. Not in an app, but in a small, physical notebook. "You must feel the flow," he insisted. The result was a horrifying map of leakage. For dollar daily coffees, $120 monthly subscription services he never used, $80 on premium cable for background noise, countless dollars on takeout born of exhaustion. His income was a calendar. Elias called it the servant's ledger, a record of money serving his impulses, not his future. Lesson 2. The seed capital war. You need seeds to plant, Elias stated. This is not fun. This is a silent, brutal war against your own habits. Leo canceled everything non-essential. He learned to cook cheap, nutritious meals in bulk. He cycled instead of taking the bus for short trips. He sold old gadgets and clothes, gathering dust online. It was grim, embarrassing work. But slowly, a tiny, defiant pile of cash began to accumulate in a separate savings account he labeled Asset Fund. It was his first act of rebellion. Lesson 3. Identifying your first plants. Start small, Elias advised. Don't think about buying a building. Think about buying a brick. He introduced concepts. An asset could be a share of a company that paid dividends, a fruit-bearing tree, he called it. It could be a high-interest savings account or a government bond, slow, steady ground cover. It could be using a skill to create something that generated passive income, an ebook, a digital course, a simple app. Your coding, Elias said, is your most fertile soil. You're using it to till someone else's field for a wage. Can you use it to plant your own? Leo's mind, previously clouded with survival, began to clear. He saw his job not as his life's purpose, but as a temporary source of seed capital. His attitude shifted subtly. He wasn't a victim of his job. He was an undercover agent, gathering intelligence and resources for his own mission. The resentment faded, replaced by a focused detachment. With his first $1,000 saved, a sum that felt Herculean, he faced a choice. The old Leo screamed to use it as a buffer for next month's stress. The new Leo, the potential gardener, consulted Elias. Now you learn the most important skill, Elias said. Discernment. Not all assets are equal. Some are like annuals, quick returns but die off. Some are majestic oaks. They grow slowly but last generations. You must understand risk, reward, and your own temperament. Leo spent nights researching. He avoided the frenzy of cryptocurrency and meme stocks. They felt like gambling on exotic, unstable flowers. Instead, he opened a low-cost brokerage account and bought a single, fractional share of a broad-based index fund, a tiny piece of thousands of companies. It was boring. It was unsexy, but Elias nodded approval. You've planted your first acorn. Now forget it. Your job is not to watch it every day. Your job is to go get more seeds. This became the new rhythm. Earn, audit, save, plant. The asset fund grew from a trickle to a stream. He automated it. A portion of every paycheck was whisked away before he could even see it, sent to his brokerage and a new high-yield savings account. He was building his army of silent employees. A year after meeting Elias, Leo experienced a seismic shift. A dividend payment landed in his account, $8.42. It was a trivial amount, laughable. But to Leo, it was a miracle. It was money that had come to him without him trading an hour of his life for it. His index fund share had appreciated slightly. His savings account had generated a few cents in interest. For the first time, he had a small, humble ecosystem where money was replicating itself. He was no longer just a laborer. He was, in a tiny way, a capitalist. Emboldened, he looked at his core skill, coding. His day job paid for his time. But what if he could build a digital tool that could be sold repeatedly? Nights and weekends were no longer for recovery. They were for creation. He built a simple, elegant plugin for a popular web development framework, a tool that solved a minor but frequent annoyance he and his colleagues faced. He put it on a marketplace for $49. The first sale notification made his heart stop. Then another came, and another. It wasn't a flood, but a steady drip. A digital asset. A rose bush in the virtual garden, blooming while he slept, while he commuted, while he sat in meetings. The income was small but transformative. It was proof. He used the plug-in income to reinvest, to buy more acorns. He learned about REITs, real estate investment trusts, which allowed him to own a sliver of income-generating property without being a landlord. He was diversifying his garden. Life didn't become instantly easy. His job was still demanding. But the psychological change was everything. He was no longer a prisoner on the paycheck-to-paycheck treadmill. He was a strategist. The fear began to recede, replaced by a burgeoning sense of agency. When his car needed a major repair, it was an annoyance, not a catastrophe. He had a liability fund, now, too, seeded from his asset income, designed to handle life's weeds without choking his growing plants. 3 years in, Leo achieved a milestone he'd once thought was a fairy tale. The monthly income from his assets, dividends, interest, plug-in sales, exceeded his essential living expenses. He was not rich, far from it, but he was, technically, financially free. His assets could pay for his basic life. His job income was now pure surplus, fertilizer for faster growth. He didn't quit his job immediately. Instead, he did something more powerful. He walked into his boss's office with a newfound, unshakable calm. He negotiated for remote work, for more interesting projects, for a raise not out of desperation, but from a position of strength. He was now working not because he had to, but because he chose to. He was making money work for him, and now his job was too. The final lesson from Elias came unexpectedly. The old man grew frail. One autumn afternoon, he handed Leo the keys to the community garden shed. "It's your turn to tend them," he said simply, "and your turn to teach." Leo understood. The philosophy wasn't about hoarding wealth in a vault. It was about cultivation and stewardship. True wealth was the freedom it granted, freedom from fear, freedom of time, freedom of choice. And with that freedom came responsibility. One rainy Saturday, Leo was in the park, pruning the now expanded rose beds, when he saw a young woman staring despondently at her phone on the same bench he'd occupied years before. She had the same hollow-eyed look of financial panic. She noticed him watching and offered a weak, apologetic smile. "Sorry, just a rough day." Leo wiped his hands, walked over, and sat down. "I used to sit on this very bench," he began, feeling exactly that way. She looked skeptical, eyeing his clean, simple clothes bought with intention, not debt. He gestured to the thriving garden, roses holding defiantly to the last of their blooms against the gray sky. "Do you see those?" he asked. She nodded, confused. "I see employees," Leo said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Let me tell you a story about how to make money work for you." The cycle continued. The acorn had become a sapling, and now it was casting its own seeds. Leo had learned the deepest truth of the adage. It wasn't about laziness or greed. It was about a fundamental shift from being a consumer of life to a cultivator of it. It was about planting today so you could harvest for a lifetime and teaching others to do the same. The garden, he realized, was never just his own. It was a perpetual, growing testament to the power of making money work so you didn't have to. Do like and subscribe channel.